I actually hit her in the back of the head, right where your spine is. Because he was telling me, he was like, if you hit right there, like just one like good hit, you can just knock the person out and then they'll be dead. And she was like pretending to be dead for a while. I would see that she was still breathing and I'll be like, Johnny, she's still alive. What the heck? And then like Johnny finally like made the like last blow, and it was kind of creepy because she was like scared.
This is Cassandra Bjorge, a 17-year-old teen from Georgia. She's sitting in an interrogation room. Across her are two police detectives. She seemed unbothered as she feasts from her bag of fast food and a cup of milkshake. She seemed undisturbed by her surroundings. Her prison scrubs and bandaged hands are the only indication she is in trouble, because looking at her, she has a very calm demeanor. But this young lady is no ordinary 17-year-old. On a normal Saturday night in April 2017, Randall and Wendy Bjorge, both 63 years old, were found. They had been beaten with a tire iron and their throats cut. They had been lying dead in their home in Pleasant Lawrenceville, Georgia. They were Cassie's grandparents. When the police were called to do a welfare check, they did not expect to meet what they saw. Their bodies had been covered in bleach. The doors were sealed with caulk. This was a hard attempt to cover up a senseless crime. Why had this ordinary, seemingly peaceful resident of a quiet Atlanta suburb been beaten, tied up, and murdered? And what does this granddaughter has to do with it? Let's look into the twisted story of Cassandra Bjorge. The bodies of Randall and Wendy Bjorge were discovered after a series of welfare checks spanning across several days. Family members had become increasingly concerned as they hadn't heard from the couple for over a week, beginning at the end of March 2017. On the evening of April 6, 2017 at 6:09 p.m., police knocked on the couple's door to check on their well-being, and no one answered, but nothing suspicious was noted. Regardless, a COAP, meaning check often as possible, was requested for that address. So the police went back the next day, April 7th, and again found no sign of the Bjorges. At 8:58 p.m. that evening, a missing persons report was filed by family members for Randall Bjorge. Randall was the son of Norwegian immigrants living in Utah, where he met Wendy, both born in 1954 and attended Highland High School in South Lake City. They married young in 1974 when they were both 20. Their marriage had lasted 43 years. At some point, they moved together from Utah to Georgia. Randall worked as a network engineer at Presidio Network Solutions, an IT consulting company, and earned a comfortable living. They had adult children, Amanda and Christopher, and were close with their extended family members, including Randall's elder sister, Sylvia Bjorge Berman. Sylvia was the last person to hear anything from Wendy and Randall. On the night they died, Wendy texted Sylvia, "I'm going to bed soon. Maybe tomorrow will be better. All I can do is hope for the best and expect the worst. It shouldn't be this hard for any of us." What was she referring to? What was so hard in her seemingly normal life? The answer lies with Cassie, the couple's granddaughter. Cassie was born on March 18, 2000. She had just turned 17 in 2017. She was the child of Wendy and Randall's daughter, Amanda. The family had a tumultuous relationship. By 2017, she was being homeschooled and living with her grandparents in Lawrenceville instead of her mom in Duluth, because things had gotten out of control.
I stopped going to Duluth in 2015.
Okay.
Because that was around the time where like all this stuff was happening with my parents and stuff. And I started getting scared going to school because my stepdad would literally come on campus looking around the whole campus just to find me.
Cassie attributed her difficult situation to her intrusive, scary stepdad, claiming she had to get a restraining order against him. Not much is known about the stepfather nor his relationship with her mom, but her home life was bad enough to have been taken in by her grandparents. Randall and Wendy applied for custody in late 2015 and were granted it in 2016. So Cassie had only been living with them for a year by the time everything went wrong in April 2017. The trouble had been going on for a while, and the move to Lawrenceville didn't fix Cassie's problems. Instead, it only brought problems into Randall and Wendy's rather peaceful home. Cassie seemed to attract trouble, and by April 2017, she hadn't had a phone since December.
I haven't had a phone since like December because my ex-boyfriend sold it. He told me, we went to the Mall of Georgia one day and then I lost it, and then he said, oh, you might have lost it at the Mall of Georgia. So me over here thinking I lost it, and then I found out that he just sold my phone. So I was like,
did you do some karate chops on him or anything, or?
Well, he already went to jail before I could do anything.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
It is not known what Cassie might have done to the ex-boyfriend who stole her phone, but it sure tells what kind of people she was hanging around with. On November 30th, 2016, a call was made to the local police department. It was just before 10 p.m. Wendy and Cassie had been arguing because she had broken her curfew. This wasn't the first time she had done something like this. Between October 2015 and the death in 2017, authorities had been called to the home 31 times. 18 were because Cassie had run away, while 13 were suspicion of illegal drugs or domestic dispute. This call was one of the latter, but it ended more dramatically than usual. Wendy told the officer who responded that Cassie had poured water all over her. There was water on the floor, and Wendy's pajamas was wet as well as Randall's. Randall had tried to get in the way of their confrontation because he knew what Cassie was like. He said Cassie had turned violent in the past, and today was no exception. According to Randall, she had hit Wendy multiple times. There was a small red mark on Wendy's arm, although there were no other bruises or signs of a physical fight. Cassie denied hitting her grandmother. Cassie was not taken into custody, but a report was written and forwarded with a juvenile complaint form to the juvenile court. In the report, he noted Cassie had been vocal and disruptive while he was interviewing Wendy. He said, I heard her several times while Miss Bjorge would speak, some smart Oleg remark, during which time I had to intervene several times to be quiet and not speak when an adult was talking. As a result of the incident, 16-year-old Cassandra Bjorge was charged with simple battery, simple assault, and unruly juvenile. Randall and Wendy only wanted a peaceful environment for their granddaughter, but her behavioral problems were only getting worse. She was reported missing twice after the domestic call, once on December 18, 2016 when she was still 16. Wendy posted on Facebook on January 5th that she had come home safely, but she went missing again on April 1st, and Wendy's final public post on Facebook is a desperate plea for her granddaughter's safety. Please spread the word. Please be on the lookout for Cassie.
I guess let's start from scratch about what happened, starting from when you ran away, I guess.
I didn't really run away. My grandma kicked me out.
Okay.
And I came home because, it was time for curfew because I didn't want to violate my probation. So I came home and my grandpa was asleep and my grandma got really mad at me, and she was saying oh, if you don't like it here, we're just going to find somewhere else for you to stay.
Things had reached a breaking point at the Bjorge's household, and Cassie took off. This was the last time Wendy and Randall would see Cassie until that fateful night when they tragically lost their lives. Cassie had a habit of running off, and she made it a routine. She would go and stay with her boyfriend at the time, Johnny Ryder.
Your boyfriend, Johnny? Mm-hmm. How long you dated that dude for?
3 months.
3 months? Where'd you guys meet at?
I met him through the ex-boyfriend who sold my phone. Because they came to pick me up one day because we wanted to chill. Yeah, we stayed at a hotel. They paid for everything, and they asked me if I wanted to come. I was like, yeah.
Johnny was 2 years older than Cassie. His mom was Japanese, but he had lived in the US for most of his life and moved to the Atlanta area in 3rd grade. He had wanted to be a Marine, but suffered a shoulder injury and had to have surgery. This delayed joining up, and then he was arrested.
But I still haven't gone to court for it because they gave me 8 felonies, but it's not supposed to be 8 felonies.
It's not exactly clear what Johnny was arrested for, but he spent some time in prison. In April of 2017, he was only 19, but he had already been married and divorced from a woman who wasn't Cassandra Bjorge. He had dropped out of college to work full-time to support his wife.
My wife, my ex-wife, she used to go to University of Florida. So it's like a long distance marriage, you know. She's over here feeling neglected and depressed, and she thinks I'm cheating on her. Whenever she was a kid, like her dad beat her with chopsticks and forced her to do stuff like torture her mentally. This is why I got kind of down about it. And then me and my wife divorced, and then I found my girl now.
Johnny's relationship with his ex-wife had broken down as a result of distance and the wife's traumatic past. Cassie brought her own baggage, but she was new and exciting.
I don't know, maybe I'm just young and dumb in love, but...
Did you have feelings for him, or just kind of a boyfriend type thing, or?
I had feelings. I still have feelings for him.
I gotcha.
I care about him.
Cassie and Johnny were in love with each other, but the real world was getting in their way. Cassie's grandparents' strict curfew and her constant fighting with her grandmother. Johnny's ex-wife was also a problem.
I'm not married to this crazy bitch, and then now she's saying that I'm stalking her when I've only met the girl twice.
It is unknown whether it is true or not, but what we are certain about is that in April of 2017, Johnny and Cassie went off the grid after Cassie ran away from her grandparents' house. Her grandmother put out a post looking for her, and in a week, both Wendy and Randall were dead. If Cassie wasn't with Johnny, maybe she would have disappeared into thin air and no one would have known her whereabouts or what had happened to her grandparents. The police would have discovered Wendy and Randall's body eventually, but together with Johnny, they shared a fantasy.
The plan was that we were both gonna get both of our families, and he was like, let's be Bonnie and Clyde.
Almost exactly 24 hours after a missing persons report was filed for Randall, the police were called to investigate an assault elsewhere in Lawrenceville. The caller was Tomoko Ryder, Johnny's mother. The victims were Johnny's sister Mindy and her boyfriend Kevin. Tomoko called 911 on her way to the hospital with Mindy and Kevin for their injuries. She told authorities that her son, Johnny, accompanied by an unknown female, had beaten Mindy with a baseball bat and made threats to kill her and Mindy. When the police arrived, they found the house in disarray. There was blood smeared on the wall and the bathroom door frame. The environment was filled with nauseous pepper spray. Tomoko told authorities Mindy had called her because Johnny had come home for the first time in 2 weeks to steal from them. When she confronted Johnny about it, he attacked her with bear spray and told the unknown girl to get a baseball bat.
And then all of a sudden he goes out and comes back in and just sprays us straight in our faces and starts hitting us and tells his girlfriend to go grab the bat. And I see her come in with the bat, and the first thing she does is hit me across my back.
The desperate struggle could have been very fatal, but when Johnny and Mindy's mom arrived home, Johnny and the unknown girl fled, leaving Tomoko to drive the victims to the hospital. Johnny took Mindy's car, leaving the car they had arrived in the garage. This car was the Bjorge's Mazda SUV, and the unknown female was Cassie Bjorge. They were achieving their Bonnie and Clyde dreams, but leaving the car behind will be their utmost mistake. The police connected it to the welfare checks they had been asked to make at the Bjorge's home and realized something was seriously wrong with Randall and Wendy. Their house was only a mile and a half away. At 11:13 p.m. that evening, the police returned to the Bjorge's house, and when they received no response, they forced their entry. The house was a mess. The bodies of Randall and Wendy were hidden away upstairs behind the door that was cocked shut. They had been beaten, same way Kevin and Mindy had been. They had been stabbed and their throats cut. Possibly, that may have been what Johnny and Cassie planned to do with Johnny's family as well, but thankfully, they didn't get the chance when Tomoko came home early. Randall and Wendy were not so lucky. The police had, after speaking to Johnny's mom, issued a warrant for Johnny's arrest. With 2 dead bodies connected to Johnny and his then unknown girlfriend, it became imperative that they find him as soon as possible. The cops began to search for the car stolen from Mindy. At almost 4 a.m. the next morning, they found it on the street, 20 minutes drive away from the Bjorges. Cassie and Johnny were holed up inside a friend's apartment and refused to come out when the police asked them to. The couple, for good reason, were considered dangerous. The police arranged a SWAT team, and at 12:13 p.m. on Sunday, April 9th, the SWAT team arrested the couple after entering the apartment. They had attempted to kill themselves with stab wounds to the wrist. They were rushed to the hospital where their conditions were stabilized and went on to make full recovery. The police interviewed and charged Johnny first.
You're charged with aggravated assault on your sister and her boyfriend. So we're here just to find out what the heck happened. Maybe they messed around with Cassie and you got upset, or maybe Cassie did something. I don't know. Well, there's more to the story too. We're homicide detectives, and we're also involved we're working a double homicide with Cassie's grandparents.
Johnny asked for his lawyer and didn't give the police anything. He was already in trouble for the attack on his sister and her boyfriend, so regardless, he was going to be detained by the police. Cassie was much more forthcoming. She explained she and Johnny had been sleeping in Johnny's car, idling away after running away from her grandparents' house.
We were just all over the place, Bailey. We were just trying to find something to do.
So I guess when do you decide to go back to your grandparents' house in the middle of the night?
It was like a couple days after, like 2 or 3 days. At first, it wasn't my idea at first. He first asked me, "Are you afraid to die?" And I said no. And then I asked him, "Are you afraid to die?" And he said no. And he asked me, he was like, "Would you kill your grandparents?" You know, like I fought them, you know.
According to Cassie, killing her grandparents was all Johnny's idea, but also expressed her frustrations with living
When you guys
with
met at
them,
the park, did he
stating
ever
all she
go over the
wanted
actual
to do was
plan
get
on how
away.
you guys would do it or anything like that? Or
I was already figuring that I had a warrant or something that already violated probation. We started out like with, you know, what time should we go over to the house? How are we gonna do this? You know, like what materials do we need to, do this?
Johnny and Cassie arrived at her grandparents' house when they were still up,
And we just
so they
stayed
waited outside for the
a little
lights
bit
to
longer
go out.
just to, wait. And then I already had the keys to my house.
They attacked Cassie's grandparents with fists,
And
tire iron,
Johnny asked me to
subdued
go
them,
get
and
some
tied them up
knives.
with duct
So
tape.
I got some knives from downstairs in the kitchen, and I got 3 big butcher knives.
After the murder, they took Randall's car and dropped off Johnny's car by a nearby park. They disposed of their clothing and poured bleach over
He just
the
did that.
bodies.
He just decided to do that. He didn't tell me. I just watched him and I was just like, okay.
They used her grandparents' money to order
When you guys were at the
Chinese
park,
takeouts and
and you
buy
were talking
new
about kind
clothes
of the plan,
and
and
drugs.
you were talking about maybe getting out of town and stuff like that, starting your new life, starting over and whatnot.
Yeah.
How come you guys did stay?
The reason why we stayed in town was because the plan was we were going to get both of our families.
They had planned to run off into sunset, but Johnny's desire to kill his own family delayed them. They spent the whole week in the Bjorge's house,
Then
and
that's
when
why we
they
went over
attacked
to
Johnny's
Johnny's
sister,
house.
it went
And
horribly
we
wrong.
attacked his sister and her boyfriend. He wanted to kill his family.
Okay.
And then that plan, just going over to his house, kind of just like, it didn't work out at all.
Cassie was upfront with the investigators and strangely casual, but there was something she forgot to mention, something the investigators knew about.
that's you and him, right? Is that at your grandparents' house? It sure looks like the living room of your grandparents' house.
How would that be possible?
Who's taking that?
That couldn't be at my grandparents' house.
Cassie denied the presence of anyone else at her grandparents' house after the attack, but here there was a video evidence
once lying and
showing
stuff like that
there was in
starts,
fact
I have a
someone
problem.
else.
I believe that there were people at that house. I'll be straight up, dude. We heard about a conversation that took place inside there where someone was bitching about the smell, and Johnny's like, "No, dude, it's just sewage. There's a sewage problem upstairs."
The cops were worried there were more people involved in the killings. Cassie confessed to inviting friends over to party in the house in the week following the attack, but she
No one knew.
maintained
I
they
told
didn't know
everyone that
about
my
the dead bodies
grandparents
lying
left on
upstairs.
vacation.
Did you text anyone on Grandma's phone
Yes,
pretending to be Grandma?
yes.
Cassie impersonated her grandma, sending text messages to family members just to prolong the fiction that Wendy and Randall
Seems that
were
you're
still
sorry
alive.
you got caught that you had people over after. You don't seem to be sorry that you killed your grandparents.
In 2018, they both received life sentences for the murders. They both pleaded guilty, though both blamed the other for inciting them to kill. Cassie, who was only 17 at the time of the murders, was not eligible for the death penalty. Johnny might have been on death row if he hadn't taken the plea deal. It is still very unclear why the couple did what they did.
Do you feel bad about what happened? Do you think she deserves what happened?
I mean, I feel terrible. I mean, I feel like the worst person on the planet. I just wanted to get away from all of that, you know, like, I was so tired of dealing with my family.
What are your honest opinions about the story? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Stay safe and please keep up with our channel.